Tushies.
Welcome to God's Way, YTVY. I'm Adolphina Shephard. This is my co-host Thomas Knight Templar.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome.
Well, as usual, folks, we have a fabulous show lined up for you tonight. One of our guest hosts that's here frequently is Mary Silvernail. And in a minute, I'll let you talk about yourself.
Okay.
And Stephen Popiotek. I think I'm getting it somewhat close, right?
Popiotek, what's fine.
Popiotek.
Yeah.
Popiotek. Okay.
There'll be a test after the show.
There will be a test after the show. Well, one of the things I want to tell you, if any of you get real scared real easy, maybe you shouldn't watch, and definitely no children, okay? Because we're going to be talking about some far out stuff that just happens to be true. So let me invite Mary to introduce herself again for those of you who haven't met her.
Okay, hi. I'm Mary Silvernail, and thank you for having me again, guys. Thank you so much.
We love to have you.
I love being on your show. And I'm a horoscope and angel columnist for newspapers and magazines, and a professional astrologer, a hypnotist,
Shaman.
Native American shaman, and a lot of other things. I work
And
with
medium.
energy,
Medium.
and I am
Yeah.
a medium.
So-
Oh yes,
Well, I
psychic
think
medium.
I think all four of us are, but it's
Yes,
always
we
nice
are.
to point that out.
Yes, that's
now
true.
let's go over
Thank
to
you.
Steve. I'm sure
I
you
haven't
have
been
a
a medium since I
Stephen.
was a teenager.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm getting back in the mediums.
Nice.
And I'm the one who lost the weight. Okay.
Let's
okay.
go to Steve here. And
That was
Steve,
great.
tell about yourself a little bit so people know who you are.
Sure. I've been involved in the metaphysical world for many years, more years than I want to admit for the age-wise. No, but I originally come more from a Kabbalistic and Egyptian mysticism background, and I've incorporated that into a system called cosmic shamanism. And I do a lot of group meditations and individual energy work with folks to help them tap into more of their higher selves, more of their lineages on a galactic level or past life.
So your type of
terrestrial level.
shaman being cosmic and hers being Native American, one ventures towards earth elements and you venture to...
To go out there.
Yeah. Well, you're going that way too.
We're making bridges, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the work is about really making the bridges, but
So
also
it seems to me they just tell them they work hand in hand. That's
exactly,
what you just said.
exactly.
Okay.
And then I also have a whole other side of the work where I specialize also in helping people who have been through more of the darker side of some of life's experiences, which is part of the topics we'll be discussing today, in terms of trying to really illuminate some of those hidden areas of our collective and personal subconscious that has been more suppressed in the mainstream media or more denied by some different communities.
Well, the mainstream media is controlled by one entity.
Exactly.
And that entity doesn't play with us. So, as a cosmic shaman, okay, how did you tap into this particular aspect of what we're going to talk about tonight? How did that first drop into your lap?
That started from pretty much very early on. I started first meditating when I was 16 years old. I'm 45 now, so it's quite a long time ago. But in the early years, after the first 2 years of working with my chakras and doing Kundalini meditations, I was also at that time I started to become more sensitized to presence of other beings, of guides, of angels, of disincarnate beings. But also with also on the darker side, I've had a lot of visitations early on where they were not so friendly.
By my trade and things like
Some
that?
were the demonic entities, and also an individual that was a friend at the time I didn't realize was a black magician until later, and so there was a lot of early training on my side of understanding quickly, not to be naive when it comes to spirit realm, just as you're not naive walking down the street.
You had to receive, true, you had to receive the gift of discernment.
Exactly, and I was ready at that time. I basically had grown up in Newark, New Jersey, so I was already understanding about being streets, why. So I had to apply it to my spirituality. In that sense, realize there's also equally unsavory characters.
Growing up in Newark is tough.
That's a
grew up
very
there
hard
too.
lesson to learn because I actually
Good
had
Lord.
a fellow that befriended me, and I just loved him to death. And turns out he was working for the other side all along. And you don't even know that you're being backstabbed the whole time. And when it hits you, gee, you really like this person. You maybe even love them, And that was such a hard lesson that they do walk on this earth in physical form. And actually, you want to hear something freaky?
Oh, yeah.
Take a breath, sis, quick.
I want to hear.
Get it out.
Okay, well, aura photography is one of my hobbies, and I've been documenting this shift we've been going through for years, probably 15 years at least. And long and short of it is I took a picture of this individual, and horns showed in the picture.
Wow.
And that was
impressive.
kind of the thing that kind of tuned it right in for me. Because, you know, it's amazing what you can see in those pictures if you have the eye to see.
Wow.
And it's kind of like a practice eye. And most people could see it if you actually point these stuff out. But oh my God, imagine seeing that from someone, right? So that was
very creepy.
That was creepy. That was creepy. And that was a shock. That was a big shock.
I've had people in my life that have come through my life that I would befriend and feel very comfortable with, and feeling as though they're also on the same metaphysical level as I am. And then all of a sudden you start feeling some ache or pain or something like that, and then you start realizing that it was something, maybe a crystal dart or something like that. Do you work with those things? Do you remove those things for people?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm talking
no,
about,
absolutely.
right?
Okay. And it's amazing because even over the years, you know, of course, I'm learning as I grow as well, and I remember more from other lifetimes, and the very diverse kind of gamut of clientele that I work with have also been through a very wide range of experiences. So even earlier on, certain things I didn't know that existed until I saw it in their field working on them. Like, oh my God, I guess that's real now too. I have to deal with this, you know, with this system.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that God will put in your path the teachers that you need
Yes.
at the apparent time that you need them.
Exactly. You're right.
That
No,
was,
and-
that
and-
was a hard
and-
lesson.
And the small niche of the clientele have been involved more with having like military abductions or alien abductions,
Right.
and
Right.
those are definitely the hardest core ones to work with in terms of, you know, helping them to decipher and clear, because I have a lot of connections with my own history with that as
Yeah,
well.
because, you know, I'm a board certified clinical hypnotist.
That was going to be
And
my next
yes,
question.
thank you,
Have
see?
you
Yes,
seen
absolutely.
people who have done
Oh,
alien
yes, yes.
abductions and
Objections?
I mean abductions and
absolutely.
taken them back to where it was and they seen it?
Absolutely.
Did they know-
That's why I was bringing it up. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And did they take you to a certain planet or a certain dimension or whatever?
It depends. Everybody, you
Is
know,
different?
right. But I have to tell you, without disclosing too much,
Yeah.
because of HIPAA.
Right.
But HIPAA, that's the
Okay.
Privacy Act,
Yes.
that I'm bound by for any of my clients. Even
know.
when they
Yeah.
come in for a reading, I have to.
Of course.
I have to.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm bound by HIPAA. But anyway, because I'm a clinical hypnotist,
Gotcha.
but I've had psychiatrists refer patients to me due to abduction, so that I could regress them and help them
Wow.
and get them through that. Absolutely, absolutely.
When you regress
So-
them, you're helping them to recognize what happened to them, and then they can deal with it once they know what it is out in the open.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
it takes away the
exactly. So I'll be
the
sending
phobias
some to
and-
you.
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, but I'm,
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I'll
like
be sending
Stephen.
them to you.
Thank you.
I like
Likewise.
Stephen.
Likewise. No, and
I
it's-
think you do beautiful work.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
thank
I, and
you.
I find people like that as well, that oftentimes there are, I mean, I would say the majority of cases, people that I've worked with who have experienced those types of violations, or maybe even a little bit lesser type of violations, a lot of them have had past lives that we have to address first before we can even deal with the current situation, so that we can be able to heal the back door that was generated from the previous trauma or the imprints of being violated in that lifetime. And especially for women that I've worked on,
That's
most of the
interesting.
women have been have been priestesses in powerful temples where they were oracle functions, you know, or they had other types of roles of being really beautiful, like bridges for the divine feminine to come into the earth. And then in those lifetimes, those temples were violated by negative male groups who sought to, like, you know, rape or destroy or shut down that purity of that stream. So then that created the karmic ripple where they attracted similar energy in this life in a very different scenario, but similar energy. So
Right.
and sometimes it's the same characters on the esoteric level or on a multidimensional level that was involved in the multiple lifetimes of harassment. So it's like addressing that earlier kind of inception point and helping them heal that and forgiveness and pull out and retrieve soul pieces.
See, I love this. I'm sorry, but this is very interesting to me because of the fact when I am helping someone who feels that they have a blacked out period of time where they're not exactly sure, but then they remember a little piece, or they come back, you know, and they have something on their body that they can't explain and things. Well, the thing is that many times when I regress them, you're absolutely correct. They will go back to a previous lifetime
When they were
instead of
abducted.
this lifetime. So you're right on.
Wow,
That
wow.
is wonderful.
Now,
I
Mary,
love this.
is that-
I love the work you do.
And you're not even doing a past life regression when this is happening. It's
No.
just instantaneously
getting
going
to
back.
the root, getting to
Yeah.
the origin
Wow.
of what's going to, and trying to help them remember what happened, because a lot of them can't remember. They lose so much time and things like that.
So you're
Yeah.
saying a lot of this
Yeah.
is they have been either abducted or whatever, violated generationally.
Or at least on a site. I mean, sometimes you find that in their actual genetic line, but oftentimes it's
doesn't
more,
their
more
gen-
about the soul lineage I'm speaking of.
But
for sure.
doesn't, when this happens usually to an individual who's in a family, it's usually the family has experience with this. You find
They can also,
Yeah, do
for
you
sure.
find that it's repetitive, that one goes to the other, to the other, to the other, like in a cycle from lives before, the same people, they just play different parts. This time you're the mother.
Oh, I
he's the
see,
fa-
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they're still in that abduction mode.
Well, sometimes, I mean, I don't find it all the time in terms of current life relevance, but definitely, oftentimes, if you're dealing with the military abductions, many times there have been situations where family members around them have had stuff going on even with the alien abductions, or were traumatized, or some of them come from military families, or had other connections in their line. So
But
you know,
that was
becomes
the
more
next
obvious.
line of question I was going to ask you as far as military abductions. Our government, shadow government,
Yeah,
has
more likely.
allowed the others to experiment on us, and not everybody who goes missing is, is
Yeah.
going for a ride to another place. All right, so in that case, how do you dispel that if somebody's coming to you and saying, Stephen, I have a family member who has disappeared. We don't know anything about him. We haven't heard from them in person, this, that, the other. I mean, do you take them to the other side to find them?
Well, no. Usually, the ones I deal with more are the ones that are not taken for long periods of time necessarily in this timeline. Let's put it that way. In other words, what I find more the case, of course, is people that disappear and don't come back. But I'm referring more to a large number of people that are experimented on, but they're taken, but they're brought back.
Yeah.
And depending upon what time frame we're talking about, and which project or which group was doing it.
Wouldn't they be bringing us back basically so we can function, they can see how their handiwork is working?
Well, like for example, there are a lot of people that were taken when they were children in schools, and some of the different tests and school psychologists and different things that were going with the medical studies and tests they were taking, where they're trying to ascertain which students had certain inclinations that would put them more on this list, if you would. So there are many different ways that they're put on lists in a sense where they're being targeted.
Would this be by benevolent?
No,
groups or malevolent?
definitely more like the deep government and shadow government groups that are mainly involved with that. I find has been the case of these kids where they became aware of the fact that our DNA is evolving, that we're evolving as a human species, and that there's new DNA strands forming. And so they even back in the 60s they were discovering that was happening, and they wanted to be able to get a hold of that and be able to analyze the fact that certain kids that were being born in generations were coming with increased psychic functioning or had the potential for mind over matter abilities,
they
higher
said,
gifts. So they wanted to kind of preempt that and manipulate it for a
They
variety
were
of
saying
reasons.
like the indigos and the diamond
Sure.
and the crystal children and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so there were whole projects that were kind of like dedicated for those types of people for that, reasoning.
I have a question.
And so some of them were taken from school when they're young, and then they were just returned later on the same day, and then they had and part of their memories are wiped, or they have like false memory inserts.
So then, how do you feel about autism and the spectrum in reference to children on the spectrum? In
I think
reference
that's
to
more
what
of-
you're referring to in the work you do.
Well,
Do you help children?
I've rarely worked on kids. I mean, I've had some more kids come to my meditation groups, and there are some that were on autistic spectrum who are adults who come to some of the events.
Okay.
and I've seen
I
them
can
progress.
actually answer that.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you
funny
very
because
much.
I was thinking about this on the way here. My nephew is autistic and has Asperger's.
Yes.
And I was at this time he's 14. He has the mind of a 6-year-old, and I know what to do to fix him.
Right.
It's strictly a genetic repair and a DNA repair. However, the soul does not want to be fixed until the earth is in a better place. So the soul would not give me permission.
To do it.
But
Interesting.
basically, I was shown that there's implants in around the crown chakra and so forth that will need to be taken out and then repair work done. So, but the soul, see, they think the earth is a hellish place, and they want to come here, hold the light, but they do not want to be cured or involved with the people that are here because they're too horrible for them in a way. And so, but when we get to a better space where it's more kind and loving, and we do evolve then they'll accept the cure.
We give it some detox from all the vaccinations, and mercury would
Oh
certainly
my God,
help.
yeah. Wouldn't that be
Yes.
Which is a
well,
huge part
that's
of
where,
it.
That's
yeah.
probably where the DNA repair
Yeah,
comes in,
yeah.
and
They don't
the
really
GNA.
do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
They don't really do that.
Well, and that's what I meant. It really is like a DNA war on all fronts to try to slow down humanity's evolution. I mean, we literally had a friend many years ago when we were talking about chemtrails, and he admitted to her, he said the main reason of chemtrails, aside from all the multi-level projects that utilize it, the main function of it was to negatively affect the genetic structure of humanity by slowing down the evolutionary process.
That's
And
the dumbing down
that's their main
of the
target.
world. It's
Right.
the dumbing down of the
Right.
world.
Yeah,
Right.
because they're also terrified on a higher level because they understand that when we become emancipated, when our heart chakra opens, when the love energy fully imbues our body, and we're exposed to the new love that Mother Earth is getting from the universe, to where she's rotating around the galactic center. Many astronomical things are building up to help transform the Earth
Yes.
physically on a quantum level, and so they really don't don't want humanity to reach that critical threshold of that 100 monkey principle, where we have that cascade effect and are able to be liberated from that
Did you hear that,
confines of that.
sis?
Right, I do hear
100
this.
monkeys.
Yeah.
Didn't we
Yeah,
talk about this?
we talked about the 100 monkey a couple of times for sure.
And all this time I thought you were taking me to the zoo.
100 zebras, sorry.
Now, Mary, you were
Yes.
talking about the implants and with Steve and everything, and you probably missed that show. So that was before actually I made your introduction, I think. But anyway, we actually did a show on that, and I called it Cookie and Scan Disc, and it's implants, devices, weapons, tags, any type of thing that they can basically put on your body, because we're kind of like a
Energy
computer.
leeches.
Yes.
Yeah, we're kind of
Yeah.
like a computer, and they're chips.
Yes.
See them as chips. Well, now we're going to do a scan disc.
We are a computer.
and clean it up.
What we are,
Yeah.
as people on Earth, on the face of the Earth, we are computer terminals. It's like you used to go into, there was a mainframe, that's God, and the rest of us are the dummies that were on the desk. Now, we're not dummies, obviously, but the point of it is that we receive, if you tune into the God source within you, you'll tap into that. You'll receive the information you'll need to start to grow and ascend. And until you ascend, all it is here is Latin,
Well, yeah, but most people, I think, are in the fifth now because the Earth has risen.
The problem is they may be in the fifth,
They're just not awakened.
but they're
all
just
of
not
them.
awakened.
They are.
And like, you don't want a person to want to ascend and arise if their thing is thinking that, wow, that's really cool what they do. No, don't come into it because it's really cool what we do. Come into it because you are on a journey to know who you are and your place in this universe. Right? You are a child of God, created by the Creator. You are not a mistake, okay? And you are not, okay? You are not a drone. God lives within you. You have to recognize it. If you don't, you'll stay in this 3D world.
See, and one of the things, if people try, I've had people come to my lectures and ask me, how can they make the Kundalini rise and force it to rise? And that's one of the worst things you can do is to force it too quick, because people can go psychotic.
Yes.
I mean, as you clear and as you raise your vibration and as you do the energy work and so forth, it naturally raises, and then people will be at a certain point where they'll awaken. But you know what? You can't go from
0 to 60.
yeah, 0 to, let's even say a 0 to 100, because
Yeah.
it would be more like that.
No, but there's a natural cause going on right now, something you touched on before in reference to the fact that the Earth is moving closer and closer and closer to the galactic center. And so automatically our vibration here
Is
on
rising.
Earth is rising. So that's why so many people are ready now to accept and understand and learn.
Yes.
And they want that because they're being drawn to that.
Right.
And they
need the
that.
knowledge. They need the
that.
knowledge. That's
Yes.
true.
And that's why I feel the show that you and Tommy do is just really tremendous. in
Well, thank you,
reference to
dear.
that.
We try to give news
good.
out that they don't know.
We're
No,
really good. We are, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's
I'll
right.
pat you on the back. Yeah. We're good.
But the thing, wait a minute, I lost my train of thought there. I lost
Okay, let's go back to where we was. Stephen does that really good. He can go
He's
right
good
back
at
like
that.
this.
So where were we?
Right, that's tough for all of us together, right?
I have never seen anybody do that like that.
It's
That's
so
what
funny.
you were saying, yeah.
You know
funny.
what, though? You were talking about Egyptian mysticism, that you come from that lineage. And the funny thing is that it wasn't until I went to Egypt in 2006 that when I got home a couple days after, I had black helicopters trying to take me out.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm from that lineage too, because I do have, I was drawn to go there for starters,
Yes.
you know, and well, I used to have a statue of Isis out there too, but
Where is she tonight?
she broke her wing and I forgot
Wow.
to glue it.
Quite
She broke
symbolic
her
there.
wing, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
anyway,
so
Mother
gotta fix
Isis
that
is
wing
here.
up. You
No,
know?
seriously.
Yeah, I gotta,
relate
I
to that in
gotta
my body
get,
as well.
Oh my God, I gotta do that right away.
Yeah. There's been so many attempts to really interfere, like I said, even with like the goddess energies coming in, and ISIS is a great example of that. When you see that in the mainstream media and in our political circles, where we have given that name to like the worst organization that
Of
embodies the
course.
dark masculine energy.
Why would
you
they?
know? And
Why
it's-
would they
and-
do that?
Exactly.
Think of it.
Yeah.
They want to belittle everything that's of the light and
Exactly.
good.
And also points a finger more towards some of the hidden esoteric groups that are kind of staging some of that, aside from all the political agendas, the esoteric political agenda. You know, it has to do more with like the Temple of Set people, and like Set in Egyptian mythology, he was the main enemy of Osiris, and on a higher
Thought.
what was that?
Thought.
No, Set.
Set. I know Set.
Yeah. So Set and Apophis, which, as I mentioned before, are two of the main negative deities in Egyptian mythology. They're really some of the top negative ETs that have been involved in part of the matrix of control on the planet for a long time.
Would they be the ETs that brought Egypt into its prosperity?
Well, I think before we get to that, I think it'd be nice to also to maybe to
Yeah.
Introduce what happened
We
just
want to
now.
tell you what just happened first, because this is unprecedented. The cable TV stations just froze, and we lost the channel because we're talking about this material. Okay, so when something like that happens, you know how important it is, because this has never happened in the history of this TV station.
The information you are
Yeah.
listening to and hearing is higher echelon information. They do not want you to ascend to learn this information, because then you'll see the fraud in everything that's around you and in everything that you grew up to come and know as normal, okay? It is not what you see, okay? You go seeking in a well, but that well is dry, and they want you to keep on seeking there because there's no information in there. They want to keep you dumbed down. This information is higher echelon. This will give you the path to ascension. Stephen, carry on.
And I think as part of that, it's about being able to illuminate some of the obstacles that have been in the pathway, trying to obscure people from the ascension path. And that's kind of in a way what we're trying to cover is in a broader range, some of the variety of themes and characters and associated technologies that are involved in that process, so that we'd be able to transmute it, transcend it, have the revocation of the contracts involved with any of these characters or technologies, so that we can claim our sovereignty in our heart space.
Well, I was watching one of your videos just yesterday, in fact, to learn a little bit more about the subject. And one thing I have known about microwave technology and scalar technology and EMF weapons and low frequency weapons, because I've been targeted with them. And anyway, I've learned a great deal about them in this past year or two, maybe 10 years actually when I reflect back. But anyway, one of the things that I learned from Steve's video, where he was talking about, he was going through some emotional challenges, and he realized that, and he found out confirmation from it, right?
Yes.
That he was being targeted emotionally. And I can tell you that I have experienced something similar, not so much with me, but where other people are being targeted to attack you. Like you walk into a place and somebody suddenly attacks you that you don't even know. Well, who knows, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, sure. No, that was some of the earlier experiences back in like '97. I'd say was the first time I experienced that particular modality of attack. And over the years, it's evolved in many different formats. And in a way, what's happening now, a combination, as I also feel that they're at different times using me to test out some of the newer weapons and systems that are going on for covert control, because they're also aware that certain amount of people in the population are either naturally immune or can protect themselves. So part of it's about them trying to do like a demographic test to see how they can fine tune it for like a larger, for more like a larger functioning of being able to send it out to more people. But in terms of the emotional mood management, it's one way to kind of phrase it. Back in 2001, when I had a first meeting with, at that time, a contact at the National Security Agency, he came to meet with me at my job. I was working part-time back then for New Jersey Transit and managing their little park and ride facility here in North Bergen for Lincoln Tunnel. And that became like Spook Central. So many spooks started visiting me there during that first period. I didn't understand what was fully going on. I'm saying, why is everybody having interest in me all of a sudden? And I already understood that I attracted attention many years before with the work which I also talk about in other videos, more about the work I do with the sun, which started in the early 90s. And that initially started the whole attention where the black helicopter started coming after I was communicating with higher beings that were coming down from the sun and opening up these higher astral portals over the area. And then I realized that they have technology which can monitor that. And in a way, it's all kind of connected because this higher technology of these shadow groups are also involved in part of the alien projects in terms of wanting to understand what civilians are involved in alien contact or in multidimensional contact with some of the higher forces that are coming in. And so it's not just about the physical craft that people see in UFO-wise, but also the higher dimensional contacts. And of course, their technology is still limited, but the idea is that they can still have like a radar system in a sense to be able to monitor a certain range of activity that's happening. And we can block it, but initially I kind of opened up Pandora's box to myself in that sense and wanted to understand more of their range of influence. So after getting on that kind of radar, if you would, in the beginning, so fast forward in 2001, I had the first meeting with the NSA guy, and then he came back and we met in Bryant Park later on. And he right away jumped when I was describing my experiences of first getting some attacks by some of these remote influencer teams that were also coming in. And then with the emotional mood management, it was more like a suicide projection where they would basically try to project the emotional state where they use the microwave technologies. That was earlier, where they can modulate the microwave just like our cell phones, but instead of using it to transmit the actual message on the phone or in that range, they can pulse it at your brainwave states, and they were able to take advanced like fMRI like maps of the brainwave states of people that are in different emotional states.
They just said, I just heard it, that the cell phones, all right, is how they're doing it.
Well, now especially, and even back then, is before even we had the cell phones. I'm talking about, I was getting hit with it. Now it's so much easier.
See, it was test marketed at first, and as soon as it exploded, you went from that piano that they had on Saved by the Bell to this little thing like this that you could just put in your ear or your watch.
Exactly.
Okay, so as the technology grows, the more control and influence they have over you. Let's face it, look at all the things that you have, even in your vehicle. You can be tracked anywhere.
Yeah. And during that first meeting, I mean, the actual NSA guy who was working 25 years for the agency at the time when I met him, he was kind of like internal affairs for the NSA, and he was admitting some of the things that they had done against me, but wouldn't go into other details. So at that point, I was a little bit okay with him in that because I felt at least more justifiable that I wasn't going crazy in that sense, even though I knew I wasn't, but it was great to have grounded confirmation from someone in the agency.
To know that they were manipulating
like
your emotions through satellites with microwave technology.
It's exactly what he said. And he said it was a common practice in the NSA back then. He goes, we use it all the time on people, and we target anybody worldwide with the signal.
Now, see, let me ask you a question.
That's interesting.
Why do you think our own government is targeting good people, innocent people, people who are of the light and of God? Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think it's also like a combination of factors. I mean, one factor, even speaking about the NSA, it's not to like put a label on the whole agency and everybody working in those agencies as being evil or bad, because they're not. From other contacts I've had, including one that was working for FEMA and for the State Department, he also confirmed to me later on, because this is a separate friend of mine, and he had also had friends in the NSA, and he said that there was a covert office in the NSA that was called the Advanced Metaphysical Studies Office that fell under the Information Operations kind of division, and that they were involved in a lot of this stuff, and that he said basically that the NSA was kind of divided. He goes, half of the people there didn't really know what's going on a bigger scale, and the other half were kind of divided between the white hats and the black hats, they referred to them as. And like the black hats are the ones that want to use technology for control, for population control, for population for like the management purposes, they were all into more the darker side arts. And the white hats were totally against it, didn't want to use technology to harm people, they wanted to use it to help people. So there's a lot of internal fights that are going on over the years within various administrations that transcends our president, but goes inside the longer term career agencies.
These things supersede the president.
Well, perhaps that's what I'm saying,
because
exactly.
These things are covert.
Yes.
I mean, the same people who run our CIA and other things like that, FBI, and things like that. These people that run that, they don't really answer to the president.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't answer to the president. They answer to somebody other than that. Okay.
Well, you're definitely dealing in larger collusion between the military-industrial complex and larger control groups in the planetary level.
They keep on saying we're moving
Yeah.
towards a
Well-
one world government. They already have that.
Well, I mean, also
That's
like
in place.
that meeting I originally had with the NSA guy was interrupted by one of the Nordic ETs who walked near us, and he was one of the negative Nordics, and that was the first time I'd actually seen one, and before I understood more about their role
He's a Nordic?
in the shadow government. Well, they look like a perfect blonde hair, blue eye model.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say to you. Where is he going to come? Like his name was Sven.
Yeah, yeah.
And he comes skiing down like Fifth Avenue. I mean, what did he do?
No, he walked by. I mean, I first saw him. I was like, wow, this guy. He just very like on a side profile. He was walking. It was in Bryant Park on the side of a 42nd Street area.
You're talking about Bryant Park. Could be anybody.
It's Bryant Park in New York City. But the NSA guy was really calm and just at the point chill with me talking. And he saw him walk by us. He just stood out. His field stood
That guy
out.
walked past there to make sure that he's not
And,
involved.
yeah, the
he's not
NSA guy freaked out.
divulging
Yeah.
anything more than he was told to tell you.
And he freaked out. Literally, it looked like death came over his face. His whole
because
body
he's
shook.
probably dead now.
And he goes, I know that guy. I know that guy. He dropped a cigarette and ran down the street away from me. I was like, what the hell just happened? And that was before I understood more from my other friend who was, like I said, in State Department FEMA. He starts laughing because he goes, yeah. He goes, I actually met two of those guys too, and they were living in Mount Weather in FEMA headquarters.
Would these be the same guys that come and threaten people who have seen
Well, the Men in Black might be.
ships and things?
Well, it's interesting because another friend's brother of mine who had worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency, he told me that. He goes, oh, so you met one of the Bobs. And he goes, I'm like, Bobs? He goes, yeah, this is kind of like the inside joke name that like a lot of the intelligence
Are they
agencies.
hybrids?
Well, this is what was funny. So he said that.
I think so.
He basically said that about half a dozen of his friends in the intel community have seen these Nordic, individuals in all the underground bases in the U.S. has, and he goes that they have high level of, security there, but none of his friends had high enough clearance to fully understand the function of these particular individuals, but that the two streams of thought were either that they were fifth-dimensional extraterrestrials and/or part of a human hybrid project like neo-Nazi style.
Oh, nice.
Oh, boy. So that's where that came
So
from.
maybe he really
neo-Nazi.
didn't die in that little thing on fire, did he?
Oh no, definitely
No,
not.
no.
But there are positive Nordics. I work a lot with them as well, from more Palladian and the Arcturian sector. But these are negative Nordics, which are connected more to Loki as well. And Loki and Fenris
yeah.
are like two of the negative deities from like the Norse mythology. But again, these are also, we have to understand, so many of these deified names are really representations of higher dimensional extraterrestrials that made contact with humanity and inseminated the seeds of the religion and the mythologies during the period of which they were influencing humanity, either on light or on dark side. So when I mentioned about Loki, and it's funny because you have some of the soft disclosure going on, like with Marvel movies, and several years ago we were first having some group psychic warrior battles to help counter some of Loki's groups, and that was when Marvel first came out with like the Thor movies and seeing what was going on with Avengers, and we start laughing and saying, wow, this is so accurate because he really is a player on the stage behind the scenes. Maybe people think it's just sci-fi,
Right.
and understanding that these beings are living for so much longer and they're manipulating puppet strings,
So this is Thor's stepbrother, right?
and
Yeah.
like the normal story in terms of actual cosmology, I'm not even sure, but mainly Thor and Odin's group for me comes from the real Asgard is actually a planet in the constellation of Arcturus, and they're amazing, beautiful beings. They kind of mix an energy of like
yeah.
Avalon and Asgard together, and are so beautiful there. And there are a lot of the big like Galactor, like Defender races, and they're involved in a lot of the interventions to fight against these negative groups, including the AI groups, which are kind of a longer story. But I want to go back to the original question, which I realized I didn't answer. Because we kind of got a little sidetracked about some of the motivations of their attacks on people that seem to be normal or light workers. It goes back to what I mentioned before about the chemtrails, and that a lot of it's about trying for population control to ensure that the longevity of the matrix, the shadow grids of control that are on all different levels of society, is able to stay longer than what it's meant to be. It's like they're trying to reinforce the veil of separation, basically the veil of forgetfulness that we have when we come into this dimension.
It's super thin now.
Exactly. It's supposed to be more completely gone than it is. So they're using artificial technology to enhance the veil to try to slow down our abilities to connect with what's happening in a more direct way.
What was told to me, and me and Adolphina, when we talk, we channel back and forth, and what was told to me on the same thing about the veil and stuff like that, is that they're losing their ability to have people who are in the, I hate to use the word, but drone state, where they just happen to life. I mean, where they just letting life happen to them and they don't happen to life. Once they happen to life, that's when they recognize the God force in them. But what I'm saying is that the veil, right, what they're doing is they're attaching attachments to us.
Yes.
Because we have light and they're drawing from us to empower them because they're losing their ability to suck that out of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's very important. Yeah.
Can I ask
Sure,
you something?
please.
Before you had said, when you were talking about Bryant Park and that whole
Chapter, yeah.
scenario, yes, you had said you can block this. So how can people block this? Because I'm sure people are wondering, what can they do in order to block this so that they're not susceptible?
Sure, I think there's different ways to approach it, but first and foremost is that anything that can enhance your heart chakra field and your radiance and love energy into your space is pivotal, because so much of their workings are about, again, trying to slow down our vibrational rate so that we're out of our center. So if we're out of our center, that also implies that they try to unground you, so you're not rooted in the new earth energies that are coming up, and you're disconnected from your higher self. So usually they'll go after certain points in the body to try to disconnect you from your central axis of alignment, right? So definitely doing regular work to make sure that you're grounded like a lightning rod.
That's what they were doing.
know.
They were putting on the crown chakra. The crown chakra,
Crown
the
chakra.
crown chakra is the porthole to which the prana comes into our body, which also fortifies the rest of our chakras and gets them to spin right and do everything else. What is discovered, and Sis and I, is that they have the other side has placed little I call 'em
Devices.
devices. I
Yeah.
call them energy leeches. What they do is to zap that energy coming in, because that's pure God light
Yes.
energy, and this is to energize them, because they're doing like, we're exposing them to the light, and like you do with a vampire, and they disintegrate, we're making them disintegrate, and we're getting rid of more and more of them. And their threshold and their hold on this world is weakening every single day.
Absolutely.
All right, and we are winning this, and they don't like it.
Exactly, and
So they're
especially
trying to,
now.
they're trying to thicken up that veil, but it is not going to work. That veil is going to be gone.
Especially now, because I've talked for a lot of years about the importance of 2017 and 2019 being like a pivotal window period for the new energies, and for the ability to consolidate our timelines more towards the ascension path versus the other side.
Right.
And then so they've been trying to do a lot more manipulations in a more accelerated manner to try to interfere with the Earth's ability to properly absorb and disseminate this new energy out to the masses, as well as trying to, in a general sense, create more of the
That's what they
slowing
were
down.
doing to us.
Exactly.
They were
As
deliberately
above, so below, right?
We were doing so much work, clearing all of this stuff out of us. And that was the analogy I was telling you about with the ruby slippers. When we had the ability to get rid of it all along. They can't do that to us because we recognize them.
And that's part of the
Once you recognize them and you recognize what they are, okay, you wind up depowering them. You disavow them, and that's how they get their power, from people who don't recognize them, and they suck their energy.
When
Right.
they're in the dark.
And that's also why for me it's important to identify some of the characters, just like in the old school, like magical systems. If you knew the actual name of the entity, you can be able to protect or control it better. So the idea is being able to isolate the vector, the trajectory of the source of the disturbance, then you can more easily involve some of your protection prayers, different systems of visualizing your aura getting stronger, asking the angels and guides that you've released the cords, and be able to neutralize your signature within those technology systems, and being able to put the mirrors up. There are many different techniques.
You can do cloaking.
Exactly. There are various types of cloaking and having them short circuit and like release the cords and extra. Like I work a lot with different geometries. So for me, it is not like one
Right.
set of techniques. There were techniques I started with in the early days, which were more working with the pentagrams, more Kabbalistic magic.
Yeah, I remember that.
Working with the angels and with the decagram, the 10-pointed star, and then the other one 6-pointed star. So there are different ways we combine them together. But it all goes back for me with working first with the basic directions, shamanically speaking, being able to invoke the guides and angels from the directions above and below and around, so that you're able to reclaim your own vectors of your local space, because what they try to do in that displacement, they try to displace you from your own like sovereign sanctuary space.
That's right.
So I
Right.
approach it on a geometric level, and both in space and in time. So the idea is that you're asking the angels and guides to protect your time corridors and your spatial corridors, so that
They
you're
do that because they don't want you to enlighten anybody.
Yeah.
They want you to spend so much time clearing the nonsense that they try to do to you that you don't have the time to
Keeping
help
you
the people you're
busy.
supposed to. And
You
this
know-
is what we've been going
Yeah,
over.
yeah, and that's why we've
Absolutely.
been
She
creating.
said the other day, tell me what you said to me the other day.
What?
Bro, why are you yelling at me? I said, I'm not yelling at you. I said, they keep on showing me these damn ruby slippers. Stop already.
so funny.
So this is why I put together this universal prayer, because when you claim full immunity, see, God gave us the dominion over the
Everybody,
land, the
everything.
seas, the creatures above and below, and they don't want us to know this. They think that they own us, okay? So when you claim full immunity, I'll read you this sentence, we claim full immunity from any kind of intrusion from any entities not for our highest good of our divine serenity, say that word.
Serenity.
So no, it's not right. Say
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. Yes,
How do you get serenity
I
from
don't know.
sovereignty?
Right? And
What is in your
and
tea?
Will you let me talk?
Yeah, tell us.
And universal intergalactic law given to us by God. We claim these rights for ourselves, our friends, family, and our pets. We state we are not owned by any being but ourselves, and state we are a free people. You see, this is where it gets into, you can claim your own divine right that God gave us as humans. And see, people don't realize the importance of this.
People don't realize that you are God. You are his creation. You can do everything that Jesus did when he was here on earth. He said it, far greater things I have taught, I have done, you shall do greater. Okay, he has said it. Why you people who spew verse of Bible don't realize this? It's not blasphemy to claim what God told you are.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Okay, they want you to think that.
Right.
Okay,
that
they
you're
want
not
you to say, oh, this is
powerful. They want to
blasphemy.
disempower
What happened
you.
to Jesus when the Sanhedrin, okay, thought he was, they wanted to put him down because they couldn't control the masses anymore. Okay, they didn't have control over the people. They wanted to feel important. That's called your free will, to impose your will on the minions. Okay, and that's what's wrong. And it's still wrong today. Okay, God didn't create Catholics, Jews, this. He didn't create any of that. Man created it.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, keep that in mind. And keep in mind, if you people, oh, the Bible has been subverted. It has been reinterpreted 1,700 times
By man.
since its inception by man who is fallible. God is not fallible, but man is. Why don't you listen?
Yeah.
Okay? Don't believe everything that you hear.
That's true. That's all true. But you were talking about how that the energies are getting weaker. And I know this because, I don't know, some years ago, I decided to go ground all the way down into Mother Earth's heart, all the way
yes.
down. And I immediately felt this black substance come into my aura. And at that time, I thought, well, maybe that's Mother Earth. But I realized it didn't feel good. So now I clear it out of my system.
That's center core. That's the same basis, that same target. They're trying to blast out of rocks and stuff like that to make oil.
It's programmable
goo.
It's black goo.
AI stuff is what it is.
Oh, by the way, that was a channel coming in from Gabriel.
Thank you. Can I
He's
thank
touching-
Ga-
he's
can I
touching me.
thank
Yeah, he's
Gabriel
touching
because
Yeah,
he's
thank
the one
you,
who put us
Gabriel.
back on the air. He put
But
us
I want to
back on.
finish talking about this, okay?
Go ahead.
Because then it occurred again, maybe a year ago, and it wasn't as strong. And then not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago or so, it tried again, and it was very, very weak. Very, very weak, and like only a fraction of what it was. And I blasted it with some fire, and it went away. But anyway, so I know just from that the strength that I saw between those different times. So we are getting rid of that stuff.
And that is important to really work, 'cause a lot of the group work I also do when with certain individuals, we do a lot of work on really connecting to these new watchtowers of light that are forming, that are kind of like the pillars, of like Gaia's new temple, part of her scaffolding for her new 4D light body, if you're using that system, the heart chakra realm. And but part of this is the idea is being able to be able to create a continuity of these pillars of light in each of the worlds, the basic 3 worlds, so that we have the ability to be like more like meta-conscious and super-conscious and be the bridge builders, because a lot of light workers get displaced, and and more like some of the downside of New Age is where they want to just focus on the ascension and upper chakras and not deal with the lower chakras or deal with their shadows, that it creates further displacement or like a dichotomy between the old reality and the new reality. So when we need to ground our power, grounding our ascension energies and connecting to the part of the earth that's already ascended,
I'm hearing it right now.
Yeah.
It just said, it goes, how could you build a tower if you don't have a strong foundation?
Exactly. And that's why the critical clearing out of the layers of interference inside the earth has been a big thing for us, especially the last 2 years, I'd say too. And being able to, like I said, take charge and claim sovereignty on behalf of humanity and the earth when working with the higher guides to help to quarantine and neutralize and basically heed Gaia's call, where we are like living acupuncture needles on her body to help her clear out those blockages and be able to send energy down to know that we want to build a bridge between the heart of Mother, Father Earth to our new hearts so that we can get the coatings like a mother with the umbilical cord.
I can't wait to, okay. In my healings that I do, in my Native American healings that I do, what I do is at the end, after I've taken away all this negative stuff and pulled it off, etc., I give the illumination, then I actually connect and I help my client connect their heart down into the heart of the mother, into Mother Earth. And it's such a beautiful connection. I teach them how to do that so that they can bring that home with them and enable them to do that. So I just wanted to tell you, I totally understand, you know, so you do that, huh?
And,
isn't it beautiful?
It is.
Anybody can do that as far as, you know, themselves. That all they have to do is be able to go into a meditation where they allow, when they're just laying in their bed at night, and they imagine these strings going from their heart, going all the way down into the earth, through the floor, down into the earth, past all the rock, right down into the center, to the heart of Mother Earth, bypassing any of those other things that try to attack you.
Bypassing center core.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to ask you,
The shadow core, I call it more so.
shadow core, center
Yeah.
core. If you could just quickly,
Because it's also Kabbalistically, just the last part of it, it's almost like the way that, like, there's a tree of life and there's a tree of death, and the tree of death, they also describe it as shells that formed around, like the Sephiroth. In a sense, so some of these shadow energies are like the shells, that husks, that try to form like a parasitic layer around the core and around different parts of the earth to try to feed off that energy, the same way with some of these implants, try to feed off of the new 4D energy that is here for our new cells to replicate in the new way, where they try to disperse some of that energy and use it to feed their negative thought forms instead of the positive. That's also part of the removal, is removing these negative, like more like reptilian and serpentine, negative serpentine structures that we're trying to create these these negative black dragon energies.
Could you just, for those who don't know, watching the show, Gaia, explain that just a little bit.
I hope people watching know that basic concept, right?
They should know that.
Maybe not.
It's
Maybe
true. It's
not.
That's true. That's a
So people
very
hear
good
Gaia and
point.
they don't know what you're
They
talking
don't know what
about.
we're talking about.
The living
Yeah.
consciousness of Mother Earth that is divine, and that's the feminine side of the living totality of the divine energy in the earth.
So it's the feminine God source.
Yes, which is indwelling.
Which would be
or like the
Isis.
Shekinah for the Kabbalistic.
Right.
You know, and I actually like to bring it back a little bit to Isis instead, because I feel like we didn't give enough press yet to that whole situation concerning our interruption before.
Yeah.
What interruption? No,
Because it is part of these vendettas that go back from these ancient star families, you know, that are on both sides of the fence, so to speak, in light, and Set and Apophis' group from that line were definitely very interested in intercepting and inseminating their dark seeds in humanity's past. You know, what was it? Okay. Okay.
Oh, something just got me in the hip.
Okay. So you need to clear some stuff out.
Get rid of assist.
And so, because in ancient Egypt, I mean, not only that, but there was hidden groups that were connected to what basically connected to the Black Sun, or Amun-Ra's group. Within that, there was a secret group called the Order of the Black Scarab. And so they work a lot with the symbolism, and you see it even up to modern days with Hitler's SS, which stood for Black Sun. But the Black Sun group really went back to Atlantis, which is the first inroads that these negative ETs had really made in their little collusions, you know, and including Set's group.
Would that be why it was destroyed?
And like the Black Sun it's like the inverse of the positive sun. They always want to pollute and invert the symbols of like Christ consciousness or solar consciousness and have it flip on its side. So for them, because those on the negative path don't really work with the heart chakra, they see the heart as love as weak. So for them, they want to create the ultimate symbol of the antithesis. It's like the Antichrist symbol for them. It's like their Black Sun is their, like the black goo idea, where it's the symbol of being able to parasitically absorb everyone's energy and light, and it's like dedicated to their, like, you know, to their false gods, you know, as their feeding source. And from that system, they actually have a whole network, because they have a network where they work more with like a dark web. And part of Set's group and the dark side of Orion. Orion has beautiful planets and beautiful things too, but there's a few planets where they try to misuse the higher light of Orion and misqualify it. And that's where Set's group comes originally, and they would work with these dark spider energies, where like almost like a dark tarantula race,
the
and,
webbing.
like tall,
Remember the webbing?
tall, dark,
Remember
like
the
black, almost obsidian-looking like spiders, very high-pitched screeches, very nasty. And they've come a lot on Earth, and we've been working on clearing more out, because there's positive spiders, of course, too. But this negative spider group has been involved with trying to perpetuate, literally like the esoteric side of the matrix, of the grid, of the web of control that was spawned from those sites off-world that they then tried to wrap around worlds that they wish to conquest or turn to the dark.
But they're big. They're big spiders.
They're very
Yeah.
big. No, they're tall. Like,
Yeah, they're big. I've seen
Have you
them.
seen- okay.
I've seen them. I actually astrotraveled one time and saw a huge conference table, and there are all kind of beings: praying mantis, octopuses, elephant people, spider people. Isis was there. She dispelled some of them, and but all different types of beings: whales, porpoises. There were some humanoids there too, who you might know their names.
Sounds like a petting zoo.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and they were all conferring on the planet of Earth.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense, and it's glad you also brought up the octopus group. That's not too much time to go into today, but there's another big group that we've been working a lot to counter. A lot of them were removed, but more recently, some of them were trying to come back in through other alliances they were making. But they also were an ancient group that was, I mean, talking about a negative octopus, human or higher dimensional group that's also been around since Atlantis, and they were some of the more undercover ones. They're connected with in the biblical statement about Leviathan. It's a reference to this kind of, and that they actually come from the planet and the Hydra constellation. And so they've been one of the biggest hidden players for a long time, manipulating and influencing. We had to do a lot of clearing of people, especially back in 2010 was the first time I saw them come in, and then a few years ago we did massive work for over a year with many other beings to help kick the majority of them out.
How'd you feel about 2012 with the shift? I'd like your interpretation, if you don't mind.
Well, back in 2010, I was even doing stuff talking to
Right.
people. I was saying that like that 2012 is more like a stepping stone. It's the beginning of a doorway opening. It wasn't the end point. It was just the beginning.
you.
And that we need to go through the shadow side first. And the guides back then were saying that it was more about 2012 to 2025, the 13-year period that they had us focus on, with 2017 to 2019 being a pivotal midpoint crossroad that was going to help us determine whether or not how smooth or graceful the transition would be versus how bumpy the ride would be, which is why right now we're really entering like that part of that turbulent period, because we're getting the higher speed jets of energy coming into the planet, and Gaia shifting more of her kundalini and her magnetic fields to open more space for this galactic, universal love embrace that's coming in. So the more we can kind of step into this current of Gaia shedding her layers of her skin and receiving this baptism from Source that's happening. And I do that also initially with the sun work. Where
By her shifting, by her shifting and ridding herself of this skin, so to speak, is that going to be in a catastrophic type of way? Like, to try to reset Earth's balance, all the damage that man has done?
Well, I think there's varying levels of catastrophe. I think that we don't need to have anything in the level that like Nostradamus predicted. I think that we avoided those timelines, but that there have been other attempts to try to re-sow other negative timelines into this one by keeping people in a state of more fear, lack, and limitation, and getting people busy to focus on the illusion that there's no other options to an alternative system of society other than what we've been given before, which is totally BS.
It seems to me, we've discussed this plenty of times, that all the governments of the world, if you took the ones that run each one of those governments and be just a handful of people in comparison to the population of the Earth, if you took them and just removed them, okay? I had no major government, just live in peace and harmony from the heart. I mean, let's face it, Russia's supposed to be our enemy?
Yeah,
Do you hate any Russians? I don't hate them.
I have a few Russian ex-girlfriends.
Well, there you go.
Love the Russians.
Right. China. Those people are working and trying to get a, they don't hate you.
Yeah, and the people
but their
wise enough.
government makes you.
Yeah.
And you got that crazy guy in Korea.
Oh yeah,
okay?
yeah. Well, it's always about having an enemy so that you can, they all work with this Hegelian like dialectic where you have the problem, reaction, solution mentality. Create a problem, offer a fake solution so you can manipulate public agenda towards the solution that we never want anyway. Doing everything in the name of security and taking away all our rights in the process.
Right, and make money.
and make money.
And
on
make
it.
money
Start the
while they're
war
doing it.
machine and make money while killing more people of our families.
And it goes back to that triangle of the all-seeing eye, because the misuse of that on the dollar bill, which I was even told by somebody many years ago who was involved with the Illuminati directly and went underground, at the beginning of my earlier days when I was discovering about Set's influence and we were doing work against him, he confirmed about Set's importance and said that the eye of the dollar bill was Set's eye. It was not the eye of Horus, which is what it should be. So we need to requalify the eye of the dollar bill to be more with the sun and Horus, not Set. So it's like releasing the contracts of our money being any type of debt to Set. We don't want that. So it's like requalifying that
you know what?
flow.
So maybe Trump will make a new dollar when they dismantle the Fed and put it in the Treasury, and let's put Father God's eye there, or Horus,
and like a goddess pyramid, because they had us do work where we had where the eye of Isis, replaced that with where the steps of the pyramid became one of the different Egyptian goddesses that were helping to bridge energy from the positive galactic worlds into that to create like a new womb, a new pyramid of rebirth.
You know what? That's perfect, because that's what the world needs, is more divine female energy.
We have a very short time to go, so what we're going to do is obvious. We're going to have another show, maybe 2, 3, okay? Because there's a lot to get out.
Yeah.
To the public here,
We'd like to thank our crew and our staff here at Spectrum Studio, Time Warner. No, not Time Warner anymore. It's,
Spectrum.
It's Spectrum.
Spectrum.
And CTV Studio. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, Antonio's Pork Store in Toddville, and man, I can't even speak anymore.
And our guests.
And our guests.
And our TV viewers.
And Aardvark Pest Control in Great Kills. And Mary and Stephen, we're going to have to do this again because an hour just isn't enough.
That's true. I agree.
It's not enough.
And let me add,
tip of the iceberg.
let me add the crew here who was so successfully able to restart the show. Because, like we said, the TV station, the TV froze. Who ever heard of that? So, thank you very much for getting it restarted. And when you run into opposition like this, it's because they don't want you to see it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we want to thank everybody.
Everybody for coming.
We'll see you again soon.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.